Hi, and welcome to Daily Dose of Devops. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about online assessment tests that you might get during an interview. I just got one recently, just the other day. It's a position that's kind of enticing. So I talked to a recruiter. The recruiter said, listen, they want to make sure they screen people. There's a online assessment that they want to send you. It has 38 questions, multiple choice, and then two programming problems or two problems. Let's just say it could be programming in Python or Bash or so. The recruiter was like, some people don't want to do it. I'm not sure why. I know some companies actually give you take-home tests that might take a weekend. I know it's kind of crazy just to do it for free essentially. For a position that you're interested in. I said, it'd be fun, so just send it off. So the employer sent the assessment to me. It's no time limit, but at the same time, you can only do it in one session. So my thinking is do it as fast as possible because there's no doubt that they're going to see that the time it took you to complete it, and you can't just go out and have lunch. And what if you come back in your session and your browser is gone? Or so I figured let's just do it all in one shot. A lot of the questions were Linux command questions, Kubernetes questions, microservice related questions. A lot of them were pretty easy, I would say. The multiple choice questions were pretty easy. Some of them kind of gave me pause because, um, I haven't done some like system administration for everyday system administration for a while now. So sometimes I'm not doing normal terminal work as much as I used to. But I have some questions up here that kind of gave me pause, or just I found maybe that might be interesting to you. First one was which cannot apply to a folder in Linux? Which command? It would be rm-r, cat, touch, or file. So which one do you think? So if I was to make a test directory here, okay, there already is a test directory. Okay, so there's a test directory here right in my /root/test. Which one do you think? So I know you can definitely run an rm-r and remove that directory. I've done that plenty of times. I've also touched test, and touching a directory or a file in Linux essentially updates the timestamp. And then there was file. So I kind of was like, can you run a file on a directory? And yeah, you can. You run a file and directory, it just says it's a directory. And the one thing, the answer, I believe, is cat. You cannot cat a directory. Obviously, cat is concatenate files and print on the standard output, and a directory doesn't have any content, right? It's just a, a way of holding a structure that holds files. So you can cat files, but you can't cat directories. So that's one question. Another question I had is what Kubernetes component is responsible for managing cluster state? I thought about this one for a little while about what components are managing cluster state. I selected the API server. Let me pull up my Kubernetes architecture diagram. And so which Kubernetes component, I know they mentioned scheduler, the controllers, etcd, kubelet, and also the API server. And essentially the API server, everything needs to go through the API server. The API server communicates with etcd strictly out of any component, and all of cluster state is managed within the etcd. So most logically, the Kubernetes API server is the component responsible for managing cluster state. Another command was, what is psuxwww? And there were a couple different options that were similar. I always use, really blindly, I just use psauxw, and it shows every process running on the system. psauxwww essentially does the same, except it only lists the current running users' processes with all the details. I guess W is wide, right? So, I mean, you could just look in the man page. Yeah, the wide output. So if I was in as the admin Azure user, I guess if I ran a PS UX www, it would just show the Azure user processes. So that was another question. One question that kind of stumped me was, and this relates to microservices architecture. You can see the question right here. Which state is concerned with identifying distinct areas within a business domain to ensure services align with business concerns? And the multiple choice options were discovering system operations, designing services and their collaborations, defining subdomains, or evaluating microservices architecture. So as far as discovering system operations, this involves identifying and understanding the various operations and functions. And then you can see designing services and their collaborations is something else totally different than just identifying distinct areas within a business domain. Defining subdomain is, this refers to the process of identifying and categorizing the different parts of a business domain into distinct areas known as subdomains. These subdomains represent different business concerns and ensure that services are aligned with the business needs and structure. That was the answer, defining subdomains. It specifically focused on organizing the business domain into distinct areas to ensure that services align with business concerns. So like I said, a lot of Linux questions, a lot of Kubernetes type of kubectl questions, microservices questions. And then I'll have another additional video later that goes over the bash problem that I had to solve as well, and that was related to writing a bash script to update a Kubernetes config file. So I'll have that a little later. Take care, and thanks for watching.